First, I will be live tonight here on this YouTube channel, youtube.com/Bengal. You're already watching it. Be here slightly before the draft. We'll be live tonight. Entire thing, reaction analysis. It's going to be crazy because, two, this is the most unsure I've been about the draft in quite some time. Last year, I did pretty well. I nailed a number of picks. My top 10 was pretty good. And even when I didn't get it with the Texans at 3 taking Derek Stingley, I mentioned it as a real possibility, and I decided to go another way. This mock will be similar to that. During the entire process, it's kind of about playing around with different scenarios that could happen, and then the final mock is kind of following the breadcrumbs and figuring out where each of these teams might go, and this seems to be the year that we know the absolute least about. So I've taken some liberties, to say the least. This mock gets a little bit crazy. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take. It could age very poorly, but I think a lot of mocks this year will. Just seems to be the most uncertainty following, all of these picks that we've probably ever seen. Day 2 and 3 will be live streamed on my Twitch, by the way. The link, as always, is in the description, twitch.tv/Bengal, and that's for day 2 and 3. We're going to start here with Bryce Young. It just seems like he's going to be the first overall pick. Things have been leading that way for a little while now. There was some speculation that it could be CJ Stroud for a little while in there, kind of around when Josh McCown became the Panthers quarterback coach. We thought maybe Frank Reich had a big connection there with CJ Stroud because of the build. I think Bryce Young's going to end up being the pick. There was speculation that maybe it's Will Levis. I really don't think it's Will Levis. And I don't think Will Levis goes at number 2 either. I think it's going to be Will Anderson Jr. I know it's been quarterback for a lot of this process. I've thrown out the idea of them taking an edge. And that's actually where it seems like things are going. Seems like there's just not a consensus in that room on a quarterback. So if you're not absolutely sure about the franchise quarterback you're going to be drafting at number 2 overall, go a different direction. Will Anderson Jr. is believed to be a safer pick. Tyree Wilson was thought to be in play here as well. I think a foot injury is going to push him down a little bit. And then at number 3 is where things start to get a little bit weird. I have the Tennessee Titans trading up to number 3 in a blockbuster trade with the Arizona Cardinals, who we know are looking to trade back. It's been reported that no team has been able to meet their asking price. We'll see if something else happens on Thursday night tonight, but I do have the Titans trading up. It will be at least number 11 and a first round next year. I could also see more being added to this as well, potentially a 2021 or 2025 one. We've seen quarterbacks get traded for a whole lot more when it comes to the draft. So I'm just going to stick at least 2 first-round picks for now. I think the compensation could be more. It could probably involve pick swaps plus, maybe a 2025 round 2. But this is also a weaker draft class this year, so it's also quite possible that in a world where the Cardinals don't get the dream package they want under this new regime, they take something to move down because they're comfortable trading down and getting more picks anyway. And then I have the Titans at number 3 with the Ryan Day connections to Mike Vrabel, taking CJ Stroud, who's widely believed to be the second best quarterback in this class. I think that's fair, and I think my QB2 pretty much ultimately depends on whether you're playing for the upside, so I would have Anthony Richardson there, or the safer guy in CJ Stroud, who I believe will be very good. He's the most accurate quarterback in the class right there with Bryce Young. It's very, very close, but CJ Stroud is a very good quarterback prospect. I think could be a top 3 pick, and I have him going here for a reason. And even though I mentioned Anthony Richardson as my QB2 potentially, it's like 2A, 2B for me with Stroud and Richardson, honestly. I'm going to have the Indianapolis Colts, who should take a quarterback at this spot, going with Will Levis. They've just been linked to Will Levis the entire draft cycle, it seems. And even though I wouldn't personally do this at this spot, even though Will Levis could end up being a fantastic quarterback, I just have higher grades on the other QBs. Hey, remember my Pirates franchise series on my second channel last year? Well, it turns out they're a real team with a very real YouTube channel launching now. They were kind enough to send me this awesome Roberto Clemente jersey. Not only one of the most historic players in the history of the Pirates, but certainly baseball as well. You think about the Pirates, Dave Parker, Barry Bonds, more recently Andrew McCutchen, who's back on the team now, won an MVP, of course. They've got a huge, rich, storied franchise. You can expect their YouTube channel to be just as good. You have behind-the-scenes videos with the team on the road.
What's up, Pirates fans? It's Connor Joe. today we're walking to Fenway Park.
You have exclusive on-field mic'd up sessions. You have exclusive access with top prospects. I'm definitely going to be interested in that, as I have Endy Rodriguez, one of their top catching prospects, or top prospects overall, on my fantasy team, on my Dynasty League. So I'm going to be super invested. And even some of the best games in team history are going to be on that YouTube channel. The Pirates are one of the hottest teams in baseball right now, with the best record in the National League. And even beyond the awesome content they're going to be putting out, here's why you should subscribe. So subscribe to their channel before the end of the next month in May, and you'll have the chance to win an amazing prize pack that features not only an autographed jersey, tickets to win a game at PNC Park, you get to view a game on the Allegheny River, pretty nice. Been waiting to do that. Food vouchers and more. So click the link down in the description. Check out the Pittsburgh Pirates YouTube channel. And thank you to the Pirates for sponsoring this video. It does seem like he'll be the pick over Anthony Richardson. There is potential for Anthony Richardson to be either of these picks, by the way, 3, 4, or even 5. But I just, in the end, didn't end up going for that, because it seems like things are leading to Jalen Carter to the Seahawks at number 5. This one's a bit of a tough one. You know, apparently league sources are saying, oh, and this is not for me, by the way, this is public, that Jalen Carter absolutely is not going to get past the Seahawks. And then other reports, apparently, are that the Seahawks are never going to take Jalen Carter here. Jalen Carter is maybe the most divisive player in this class because of the off-field and character concerns. And I know, I've seen in my comment section the entire process, oh, no way he gets past 5. No way he gets past 6. And like, gradually that has kind of grown and grown and grown with that number. And I don't know. I think Jalen Carter could go anywhere from 5 to 9. I don't think he gets past the Bears. I think the Eagles could trade up with the Falcons to get him. I think that's also a possibility, one that I played around with, one that I put out on Twitter at Bengal YouTube, link down below. But this one's a tough one. It's tough to know where Carter's going to go. But for Seattle, they need help on the interior, even after signing Draymond Jones, even after bringing back Jarran Reed. This is a good pick in terms of the football player, but you worry about the character stuff. But he could just end up being one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL. So it is worth taking a chance on that when you have multiple first-round picks. They pick again at 20. And then we have Devin Witherspoon to the Lions. This one is not apparently a fan favorite. I've seen a lot of Lions fans saying, we're not taking a DB here ever. It really seems like Devin Witherspoon from Illinois is going to be the pick. Really instinctive corner, can play the nickel. I think that's going to be a really good role for him in the NFL. Has the chops to play on the boundary as well, but is slightly undersized. Ferocious tackler for somebody that is a little bit undersized. I just think nickel hybrid safety is his best role, but he could also be a tremendous boundary corner as well. Think about somebody like Denzel Ward. Devin Witherspoon is very, very good. I do expect him to go to the Lions here on draft night. That one I do feel pretty good about. We'll see if anything changes. And then the Raiders at 7. So we have a bit of a Tyree Wilson fall in this scenario. It was, previously believed that he wouldn't get past 5 really with Seattle, but things change, and it seems like with the foot injury late in the process, or revealed late in the process, that could be an issue, is that Tyree Wilson is not going to go top 5, maybe not even top 10, although I still would have him in the top 10. The Raiders is one of those weird picks where, is this just Anthony Richardson? I could see this being a quarterback if Stroud gets here, if Will Levis gets here maybe. Richardson obviously has got here in this mock draft. I could see it being a corner in Christian Gonzalez. I could see this being Tyree Wilson very easily. This is one of those ones that's kind of tough to predict for me. I've had trouble. I think Peter Skoronski is an outside shot to be this pick as well. I've had trouble with this pick for a while over the last week because I'm not sure it's going to be a QB. The entire process, if they love Bryce Young like it's reported, do you settle for QB2? Do you go up and trade up for QB2 if you don't really love him, if there's that much of a gap between Bryce Young and the next QB? I'm not sure that you do. And I think if you're off the QB train at that point, do you just avoid one altogether? You have Jimmy Garoppolo. You could be okay with that for a couple of years. I'm going to end up going with a corner here, Christian Gonzalez from Oregon. He's my CB1 in the class. I think he has the best ability to stay on the boundary. Press man corner, very fluid, moves really well, has the length that teams desire for the position. I think he's going to end up going high. I'm kind of surprised he's not going to be the first corner off the board the way it looks right now. But He is a tremendous player, goes one pick behind Devin Witherspoon. And then at number 8, have another trade. That is going to be the Pittsburgh Steelers moving up to 8. Now, I think there's a very real chance that the Falcons stick and pick here. I think you look at maybe the potential of a Nolan Smith. I think Bijan Robinson, the running back from Texas, is a little bit more likely to the Falcons here at 8 if they stick and pick. You know, they've shown a propensity to just stay at their spot and take the best player available regardless of position. You look at that with Drake London at 8 if they viewed him as the best player available. You look at Kyle Pitts, especially at 4. But we are going to have the Steelers trading up. I think this is going to be a similar return to what the Devin Bush trade was when the Steelers went up to 10 to get him. The Falcons are another team we know are looking to move down in the draft. So I think that's exactly what's going to happen. And the Steelers are going to move up for the offensive tackle out of Ohio State, Paris Johnson Jr. It's widely believed that the Steelers will be taking an offensive tackle with, one of their first picks. I think it will be this one at 17, but we have them moving up, of course. There is supposed to be a very huge run on offensive tackles in this draft. Offensive linemen, maybe in general, depending on how you feel about Peter Skoronski, Osiris Torrance, maybe even Steve Avila. Offensive linemen are supposed to go off the board very quickly and ferociously tonight. We'll have to see if that comes to fruition, but that is the big rumor right now, is that once the offensive tackles start going, they are going to go. And we'll have to see, what happens. But this effectively starts the run. Bears at number 9. So this is tough. Paris Johnson is off the board. I think that is one of the 2 players the Bears would have targeted at this pick. I think it was probably down to either Paris Johnson Jr. or Jalen Carter as their 2 biggest dreams, if you will. And they are both off the board here at number 9. And that puts the Bears in a little bit of a tough spot because Peter Skoronski is there. You could play your best 5 on the offensive line. Maybe if you want to keep him at tackle, maybe he's not a tackle on your board. Maybe doesn't meet the length profiles that you're looking for. Shorter arms, of course. Draft tradition to say that at this point. Tyree Wilson is available. You also have Darnell Wright, and I really, really believe Darnell Wright could be the pick here. I also think there's a chance Darnell Wright falls a little bit, and it's just kind of a tough spot here. And ultimately, what I had in my final mock as I'm looking at it, I had Tyree Wilson here, but I really think it could end up being Darnell Wright, and I'm going to call an audible here at the last moment, and I'm going to take the right tackle, Darnell Wright, out of Tennessee. He ends up being a top 10 player. And the Bears are looking for a right tackle. You have your left tackle. I think it was a 5th round pick out of, was it Southern Utah last year, Braxton Jones? I think it was Southern Utah. But they're looking for a right tackle. And maybe Peter Skoronski profiles better at guard. Maybe you have him on your board as a guard. And you don't see the value taking him in the top 10. Tyree Wilson absolutely could be the pick here, if he's even available. Tyree Wilson could be a top 5 guy when it's all said and done. He also could fall. And again, that has put me in a very interesting position because for the Eagles at 10, I had Peter Skoronski. And I really think Eagles fans are not going to be happy with Peter Skoronski now, but thrilled later. I think he could end up being one of the best interior offensive linemen in this class, played tackle at Northwestern, and was very, very good. Probably the best offensive lineman in this draft. Point blank, period. Truly believe that. It's just shorter arms can drop you in the draft at offensive line and defensive line, really, even though Aiden Hutchinson was still the 2nd overall pick last year. I think Skoronski has a really good chance to be this pick. And I think with Tyree Wilson on the board, that's extremely tempting. But I think it will be Peter Skoronski, so I'm going to keep Peter Skoronski. And Tyree Wilson continues to fall at number 11 now. Now, I think Tyree Wilson was a player the Cardinals could have considered at number 3. If they moved down to number 7 with the Raiders, I think Tyree Wilson still would have been in play. And I'll tell you, in my final mock, before when I did this yesterday, I had the Vikings moving up to 11 to take Anthony Richardson in a Cardinals double trade back. They're under a new regime. They're not a very talented roster. They need all the help they can get. They need all the picks they can get. But in a scenario where Tyree Wilson is available at number 11. He's definitely taken a bit of a dip in this draft, big drop. I think he's the pick here for Arizona. I think they could still trade down again. That would be kind of wild, but I think there's potential for that. I think the Vikings are a team that, dare I say, is likely to move up. And that's actually what I'm going to have happening here at number 12. I'm going to have the Vikings moving up with the Houston Texans. The Texans have more picks in the top 150 in this year's draft than anybody else, I believe. They are absolutely chock full of top picks in this draft, and a number of picks acquired via other teams. Maybe they are compensatory picks. Maybe they've been acquired via trade. Certainly in the case of some of those. I think the Texans are a team that could actually consider a trade down in this spot. You know, we took Will Anderson Jr. at number 2. Why not take Anthony Richardson here? I don't know that they're sold. And the Vikings have been heavily connected to Anthony Richardson, apparently doing a whole lot of work with him. And I think in a world where, you know, Kirk Cousins is your quarterback and you're unsure and uncertain about his future, you could look to get your QB of the future while still having Kirk Cousins under contract. You can develop Anthony Richardson in behind, and then, man, would the NFC North be exciting with these young quarterbacks in a couple of years? Jordan Love, depending on how he develops, Justin Fields, and obviously in this scenario, Anthony Richardson to Minnesota. Lions, a bit of a question mark as to whether Jared Goff is their long-term starter. We had them passing on a QB in this mock draft. Doesn't mean it happens, but it certainly could. I think the return for this pick is similar to what the Bears gave up when they went up to get Justin Fields. I think it's probably at least 2 first-round picks. And we know Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, the GM of the Vikings, is not afraid to move up and down the board. Had a huge trade down last year with a division rival in the Lions when they moved up to get Jameson Williams. Vikings ended up with Lewis Cine. But I'm going to have the Vikings moving up for a QB here. And that quarterback, obviously, is Anthony Richardson, as discussed. Packers at 13. JSN's on the board. I know everyone wants JSN here. Zay Flowers, Quentin Johnston. There are a bunch of receivers on the board, tight end if you want to go that way. I think it ultimately comes down to an edge or an offensive tackle for the Packers. And I know that's going to be unpopular. I think it's a tackle here. I really do. And the tackles are kind of flying off the board as expected. And Broderick Jones is sitting there at 13. He has some of the highest upside of any player in this class, period. He is an offensive tackle out of Georgia. He is a mauler, and he's very athletic. And I think, you know, even though he could be a little bit better in the run game with his size, I think he's still developing as a player and pass pro as well. But he is someone with a ton of upside. He's so athletic, and that is highly coveted. You talk about the length of the position that maybe a Peter Skoronski doesn't have. Broderick Jones has it, and he's very, very quick. I think he's going to go higher than people expect, and I think top 13 is not unreasonable. And then we have the Patriots at 14. I'll tell you, in my pre-final mock, JSN was off the board at this point, and I'm actually not going to end up changing the pick. I am going to go with Zay Flowers, receiver from Boston College. I think there's a decent chance he is the first receiver off the board, despite being undersized. Keep him local, BC to Foxborough. Not a super long trip, as you guys know. Zay Flowers is explosive. He is a 3-level separator, despite not being incredibly large for the position. I think can play on the outside. He's got good hands. He's got exceptional route running ability. And that often is finding the blind spot of the corner, getting into that blind spot, and then breaking off the route. He is so good at getting open, and his speed can give you, as I said, like a 3-level threat. Someone that can win deep down the field, but also be a slot contributor, which we know the Patriots value. Jets at 15. JSN is tempting here. I'm not going to lie, because the tackles that they want aren't necessarily available here. And I just did a Jets rebuild. Yes, you have Mecole Hardman. I understand that. Beyond Garrett Wilson, who's very good. Corey Davis, I'm not sure I believe in. You traded Elijah Moore. I think they could be looking for a slot receiver here, potentially. And in a world where JSN is available, we are not going to take a tackle here. And I would think I would be surprised to see the Jets not take a tackle here in real life, but I have also heard that if the Jets' offensive tackle of choice is not there, they will simply choose to go another direction. I think that could be an edge rusher. Nolan Smith stands out, but I am going to go Jackson Smith and Jigba to team up with his Ohio State teammate from a year ago. I think if you watched Garrett Wilson in 2021, which obviously the Jets did, they drafted him, I think you probably saw this guy flash on tape significantly. JSN is the pick there to the Jets. I think that'd be crazy, unexpected, but that's what this draft I think ultimately will end up being. And a curveball here in the final hour, and I'm pulling so many audibles right now and doing things I did not expect to be doing in this mock draft. This is the reason why I plan it out, is so I can just pick from that list on the video that I've already done. And we're really challenging ourselves to think on the fly here. And this Commanders pick was interesting because offensive line and corner have kind of been those two positions that have stood out for a while for the Commanders, and I think it's going to be one of those. However, in a world where you don't pick up the fifth-year option on Chase Young, that shows you're not committed to him for the future. That's what it says. Not committed to him. He hasn't been able to stay on the field. I don't blame the Commanders for that decision. He's not worth paying that money when you're not sure what you're going to get out of him. I understand that. However, when one of the better edge rushers in this draft falls and is available at this pick, it puts me in a tough spot to go corner or offensive line when offensive line's kind of flying off the board. I am going to go Nolan Smith here, and I really did not ever expect that I'd be projecting them to take an edge rusher, and I think there's a good chance it doesn't happen. I'll be the first one to tell you that I think that it still probably is a corner or an offensive lineman here. Just seems like too good a value to pass up at this point, and Nolan Smith is your long-term Chase Young replacement. At number 17, Bijan Robinson, ripping the Band-Aid off. I know nobody wants a running back. Bijan's different. I'm going to tell you that whatever team takes him, he's going to be your favorite player within a year. That's how it's going to be. I think tomorrow, he is a top 10 running back in the league. And I don't think that's hyperbole. I don't think that's Texas bias. Bijan Robinson is just that good. I think he's a top 3 player in this draft. He is as clean as it gets off the field. And on the field, he really has never been injured. He is an incredible receiver. He will pass block. And as far as a running back goes, as a true runner, he can go in between the tackles. He has some of the best vision, patience, and I would say instincts of any running back I've seen. Bijan Robinson is incredible. And it's not his ability to take, outside zone 50 yards to the house. That's not necessarily his game, even though he can do that. His long speed is not elite, I would say. But what is particularly impressive about Bijan Robinson, and under Arthur Smith, I think this would be an incredible fit into the offense. What's particularly impressive about Bijan Robinson is his ability to turn negative or short yardage plays into big positives. The undervalued play is going to be a tackle for loss / no gain that goes for 6 or 7 yards. That's incredible. And that's something he has the ability to do on a down-to-down basis. Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs has more home run speed, no question. Bijan Robinson's more consistent, and he will keep drives alive without you even realizing it until you go back, you check the film, and you go, oh, this was going to be a tackle for loss. The most forced missed tackles of anybody in college football, Pro Football Focus tracking history for missed tackles, forced missed tackles. Bijan Robinson is as good as it gets, and you get a top 3 player, if not higher, at number 17 after a trade down. I don't see a better scenario for the Falcons in the draft. I really, really don't. Lions at 18. I'm going with an edge rusher. You go with the corner at number 6. Yes, Anthony Richardson off the board. I don't think you go quarterback, obviously. Hendon Hooker's gotten talk for the first round. I'm not convinced that's going to happen. Lions here, we're going to go with Myles Murphy. Apparently, he's going to go higher than people have been thinking. Myles Murphy is one of those players that's expected to slide in the draft, But just like some other players in this class, Antonio Johnson from A&M, Jackson Smith and Jigba from Ohio State. You look at 2021, Brian Brzee, also from Clemson. The player's just better than they were in 2022. I don't know if you saw he was going to be a top 5 projected pick. Took the foot off the gas pedal a little bit. Would hate to see that. But Myles Murphy's 2021 tape is very, very good. He is a phenomenal athlete with the size that's highly coveted at the position. And I know you have James Houston. Didn't forget about him. He's really more of a designated pass rusher. Myles Murphy is a 3-down player. And when you have a rotation of edge rushers with Aiden Hutchinson, with Myles Murphy, and then with James Houston added into that, you keep everybody fresh. You know, maybe Myles Murphy is at first the first and second down guy, and then you take him off the field and bring in James Houston. Maybe you get all 3 of them on the field at the same time in a type of like NASCAR package, right, with your defensive ends going. Get Josh Paschal in there. You can have all 4 of them on the defensive line. That could certainly happen, depending on the down and distance. But Myles Murphy, I think, will end up going fairly high, and 18 ended up being the spot. As we get to the Bucs at 19, I think they're taking an offensive tackle, and I think that offensive tackle is going to be Anton Harrison. You get to keep Tristan Wirfs on the right side in this scenario. There's been talk about him moving over, depending on which tackle they take. I think they're taking a tackle, and Anton Harrison being here really fits. Athletic left tackle, moves well in space, pure pass blocker, and very good athlete, as I mentioned. All the makings of a top 20 pick. I think the Bucs take him here, maybe a little bit ahead of schedule at 19. And then at 20, we had the Seattle Seahawks. Went ahead and took Jalen Carter earlier at 5. Lucas Van Ness still being available makes this an incredibly intriguing option. However, I actually think Lucas Van Ness continues to fall. I'm going Jordan Addison from USC. The Seahawks really, 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 really like to use 3 receiver sets. They love it. The 3rd receiver in the Seattle offense is a very important position. And they have not really found that guy. Marquise Goodwin left. You got to end up getting somebody to play that position. And Jordan Addison's a really good replacement. Tyler Lockett has been about 29, 30 years old forever. I think he's going to continue to be very, very good. But this is about getting more talent, building around Geno Smith for these next few years. And you got maybe the best player in the draft at 5, and then maybe the best receiver at 20. So the Seahawks stick and pick and go Jordan Addison in this mock draft. Chargers at 21. I'm conflicted here because I could realistically see a wide receiver, a tight end, an edge rusher, or a cornerback. Those, I think, are your options. And none of them would particularly shock me. None of them would. However, in this particular scenario, I'm going to go Michael Mayer. I think he's the first tight end off the board. He is linked to the Chargers. People kind of view him as that Hunter Henry replacement. Dalton Kincaid has a little bit of an injury thing. He might drop in the draft as a result. He's a better vertical threat, but Mayer is as sure-handed as it gets. He's a willing run blocker. Not the best, but a good run blocker, I think, and has just the most reliable hands you're going to find. He is a security blanket. He is a safety net. He is your guy that you just get the ball to. You need a first down. I'm not saying he's Jason Witten, but think about a Jason Witten type guy. He was just, anytime the Cowboys needed a first down, just get it to old reliable. And I think Michael Mayer could have a very long career doing that with Justin Herbert. And I think he will be the first tight end off the board. That's my prediction. And then at 22, I know wide receiver would be in play here. Quentin Johnston is available. Josh Downs, Jalen Hyatt maybe. I think it's a little bit early for those guys. I think it's going to be a corner. And I know this is not going to be popular, what's about to happen. Deontay Banks is here. Joey Porter Jr. is here, and it's not one of them. I'm going with Emmanuel Forbes. Now, I could see it being one of them. I'm not saying that's not possible. But Emmanuel Forbes is apparently very liked around the league. And he's been someone that's projected to go as high as even number 16. He's undersized, but he is a ball hawk. He is somebody that you have to worry about throwing underneath because he's going to break on the ball and he's going to take it to the house. I think 3 pick sixes last year alone. He is incredibly fast and has again, great ball hawking ability, very good hands. I think Emmanuel Forbes could go higher than Deonte Banks and Joey Porter Jr. Both of them, Deonte Banks tested really well. Joey Porter less so, but they're bigger. They're good athletes, but you're getting a different flavor here in Emmanuel Forbes, who is apparently very unapologetic about being undersized, says doesn't care, going to shut you down anyway. Teams apparently love it. They're all over it. So even though it seems early for Emmanuel Forbes, especially with the other corners on the board, I do think this is kind of where it looks like that could go. I think there's a possibility of that. And then the Texans all the way down here at 23. What an interesting spot. You know, I didn't have this happening earlier. And it's presented a bit of a curveball here at this spot. But that curveball we're hopefully going to hit out of the park. MLB Bengal reference. Check out the second channel. Second channel is Bengal Plays. Link down below. Bunch of MLB The Show and MLB content on there. I'm going Lucas Van Ness. Lucas Van Ness is somebody you could have considered at 12, in my opinion. And he gets available at 23. That is exceptional value. And he is a mauler. He is a big speed to power, get him on a runway, bull rush, edge rusher that's twitched up, can really, really move. I'm a big Lucas Van Ness guy. You got to develop him, understandably so, but he is as good of an athlete as you're going to find at the position, and he is big and strong, and he's a first-round pick. I really feel good about that. And then for the Jags at 24, Dalton Kincaid is of serious consideration. I had Lucas Van Ness here earlier. I think the Jags are an edge or a corner or an offensive lineman. Now, the real curveball that the Jags threw us last night was not even necessarily the Jags. I won't blame them for this. It's not their fault. But Cam Robinson suspended for a performance-enhancing drug. Who knows what that is? Or a banned substance, I should say. Not PED, but a banned substance. Could they take an offensive lineman? Osiris Torrance is available. Apparently, we could see Matthew Bergeron sneak into round 1. It feels early. It feels a little rich for my blood here. I really think corner would be in play, and when you factor that in, I really think Brian Branch is in play. I think interior defensive line is in play. I think the Jags really have plenty of options with this pick. It's just which direction do they go? And I think Brian Branch is a really good option here. I get scared about Brian Branch because every year, we see these hybrid safety / nickel corners fall in the draft. Brian Branch did not test exceptionally well, and I think that's a bit of a problem. Not for him. I think the player is going to be phenomenal. If the Giants took him at 25, I'd be ecstatic. I really, really love Brian Branch. I just know that the league doesn't typically really highly value those players. Even Daxton Hill, who is a more true safety, he fell to like 31 or something last year. Yeah, 31. It's a tough call. I'm going to end up going boundary corner, and I'm going to take Joey Porter Jr. from Penn State. Corner is a really, really big need for this Jags team. You know, I'm not sure if you thought Joey Porter Jr. was going to get here, and here he is, and they jump on the opportunity, and that's who they end up drafting. And then my Giants, as you know, are set up here at 25. Do they take a receiver? I think there's a possibility of that. Do they take a corner? Do they take the first interior offensive lineman off the board? All interesting possibilities, and I think all certainly possible. I'm going to end up going Deonte Banks out of Maryland. I just think if he gets to 25, he'll be the pick at 25. Plain and simple, really good athlete, good press man corner. I think some decent zone instincts as well. I think tested better than he actually looked on film in terms of, deep speed, long speed. But I think the player's pretty good, and I think the Giants will be getting good value here at 25. Now, it sounds like at least 2 tight ends are going to go in the first round, at least. And that presents the opportunity for not only Luke Musgrave to sneak into the first round, but potentially Sam Laporta from Iowa as well. Darnell Washington, I think, is a name to keep an eye on. Doesn't seem like he's going to be a first-round pick right now. We'll see what happens tonight. It's going to be crazy. I'm going to go Dalton Kincaid. You lose one Dalton to free agency, which apparently you don't even feel bad about. Didn't really like Dalton Schultz, it seems like, in Dallas. Kincaid is a vertical threat. He's a good fit for this offense. And, I think now with Mike McCarthy looking to get more playmakers on offense, I think Kincaid is one of those guys that fits the bill. You can really, really use him the way, Mike McCarthy's favored tight ends in the past. You look at some really, productive Green Bay options, and that's, historically that maybe it's Jermichael Finley, hook him. Maybe it's Mercedes Lewis. Maybe it's Jared Cook. Maybe it is Martellus Bennett. There have been a number of productive Green Bay tight ends, and I'm not putting it all on that. But Kincaid just kind of meets best player available plus need. Now, this wouldn't surprise me if it was Jahmyr Gibbs, to be honest. It wouldn't surprise me if this was an offensive lineman. It wouldn't surprise me if it's interior defensive lineman, like not Kalijah Kancey maybe, but maybe Mozzie Smith from Michigan. Maybe it's an edge rusher as well. The Cowboys could go a lot of different ways with this, and apparently it's been as tight-lipped as it ever has been. Really, no one seems to know what direction they're going to go in. And maybe if Bijan gets here, he's a Cowboy, but I don't have him getting here in this mock draft. As we get to the Bills at 27, I'm going Brian Branch. Another team I think could go in many different directions. I could see receiver. It wouldn't surprise me to see Josh Downs go ahead of Quentin Johnston in this scenario. Want to put that out there. Wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me if this was a corner. It wouldn't surprise me if this was Mozzie Smith, Will McDonald, or Felix Onyedike-Uzomah. Brian Branch took a private visit with the Bills. They have a need at both slot corner and safety. Branch could do whatever you want him to do. I think a little over 100 over the top snaps last year, or maybe in his career, I should say. Really just a nickel corner. Played their star role at Bama and was very, very good in that. He drops because of positional value, but the Bills not only get best player available, they also really fill a need as we get to the Bengals at 28. It's another tough one for me. It really, really is. It really is. Because Kalijah Kancey makes sense here. Absolutely he does. A tight end sneaking in makes sense here. Maybe it's Musgrave, Laporta, or Washington. Absolutely could see it. I don't think this is a tackle. I really don't. I think you like Jackson Carman enough. Maybe I'm wrong. But I don't think it's a tackle. And this is a player widely expected to go in the first round. I care how you feel about it. It's Jahmyr Gibbs. It may not happen, but Joe Mixon is a huge question mark. You no longer have Samaje Perine. Jahmyr Gibbs is juice to an offense that is already juiced up, if that's an expression. Obviously, we know what T. Higgins gives you. We know what Jamar Chase can give you. Yes, tight end is something they could potentially consider here, but in a stacked tight end class, you do not have to take one in the first round. Yeah, I know running back is not the super valuable position either, but if you really view these as the top two backs, you could definitely look to go that direction. One of Darnell Washington, Sam Laporta, and Luke Musgrave, I think will make it to pick 40. And then beyond that, I think Tucker Kraft, Luke Schoonmaker, Zach Kuntz, I think one of these guys is going to be available closer to pick 100. So you have flexibility if you were the Bengals. I don't think you have to take a tight end at 28. You could, and it wouldn't be a bad pick. Kalijah Kancey also makes a ton of sense there to me. Ton of sense. And he's actually not going to last much longer because I am going to go Kalijah Kancey to the Saints at 29. I honestly think they might prefer Mozzie Smith, but I also think Kalijah Kancey gets into the first round. So a little bit conflicted there. It wouldn't shock me if that's Mozzie Smith. Wouldn't surprise me, honestly, if it's Hendon Hooker. That might be unpopular, but it wouldn't surprise me. I might do like on stream tonight if that happens. Like, wow. But that's the most you're going to get. And then Philly at 30. This is going to be unpopular. Listen, Eagles fans have not liked any mock draft I've done the entire cycle. I'm going to continue the trend. Because at pick number 30, I'm going to project them to take Adetomiwa Adebawore. And Adebawore is a freak athlete. 282 pounds, ran in the 4.4s. He is a workout warrior for sure, but the tape's also good. He's got juice. He's played off the edge. I think he's an interior player. When you talk about, what Howie Roseman likes to do, it's load up in the trenches. And I think you want the description on Adetomiwa Adebawore, it is a better Milton Williams. Remember the Louisiana Tech kind of edge hybrid? I think that's what Adetomiwa Adebawore is. And he's been linked to Philadelphia. I've heard Philly might even look to trade up and get him, or trade back from 10 and get him. I think Adetomiwa Adebawore could very easily be a first-round player. I think when you look at him next to Jordan Davis, you have, thunder and lightning. But Adetomiwa Adebawore actually brings both. It's just, you really have Adetomiwa Adebawore is thunder and lightning, and then Jordan Davis is a mountain. It's an interesting combo on the defensive line, and I think would be a very good one for Philadelphia. I think Eagles fans are going to be upset about this because of just the name and the name value. It's not one that has a ton, but I think there's a good chance he goes in the first round. And that will end the first round mock draft here with the Kansas City Chiefs, who I think could trade up. If they trade up for Zay Flowers, we'll see if that happens. Quentin Johnston makes sense here. Their pass rush is just weak, man. It's just weak. I'm going Will McDonald from Iowa State. Was less productive than he probably could or should have been, playing in the 4I position at Iowa State. But this is my mock draft, guys. Took some liberties, got crazy, called some audibles, did some stuff on the run, under pressure, boost my draft stock or don't. I hope I get 5 picks right. That's what this comes down to. I think 5. The ones I feel best about are Young, Anderson, Witherspoon, and that's it. We'll see what happens. It'll be a crazy one. Live on my YouTube tonight, youtube.com/Bengal. Be here. Twitch the next 2 days, twitch.tv/Bengal. The links, as always, are down in the description, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.